This is Madame Claire, a self-made and self-endorsed psychic. She's making her way through the yellow pages and cold calling people to see if they would like to pay money for an over-the-phone psychic reading. Wait, it's how much? Oh, would you look here? She's reached our very own Brainerd. Now hold the phone. Before you dial 1 to enter your credit card information, you should really consider the science of psychics for the sake of your wallet and your dignity. So let's put Madame Claire on hold and look into our very own crystal ball into the science of psychics. A psychic is a person who claims to have extrasensory perception, or ESP, to identify information hidden from the normal senses. They are meant to have telepathic or clairvoyant abilities which are inexplicable by the laws of science. As you can imagine, this makes the job of scientists both really frustrating and interesting all at the same time. You see, scientists and psychics have been at odds with one another since the beginning of time. People like Madame Claire claim to be able to see into the future, read people's minds, and even talk to the dead. But of course, there is no scientific evidence of this presented by natural or physical laws, which categorizes this practice as pseudoscience. But is it completely hocus pocus, or is there some science behind those who claim to have psychic powers? Is there the slightest chance some people truly do have a sixth sense? To answer these questions, we need to understand the realm of psychics and the paranormal a bit more. As mentioned before, psychics use their intuition to receive information about someone's past, present, future, or all three. Sometimes they use tarot cards, runes, or refer to other methods which are meant to uncover information, like astrology. A medium, on the other hand, is someone who can recognize and connect with someone's loved one's spirit. Yeah, we're talking about communicating with the dead. Luckily for us, Madame Claire claims to be both a psychic and a medium, which makes her a great one-stop shop for all of Brainerd's paranormal inquiries. The history of psychics dates back to the dawn of humanity as we know it. In fact, many ancient civilizations recognize orders and groups as legitimate channels to predict the future, speak to the dead, or conjure spirits. In ancient Greek literature, for example, there are many references to priests and priestesses who were believed to deliver prophecies from the gods. During the early days of Christianity, prophets were considered to have powers and future-telling abilities. Then, in the 16th century of France, the apothecary and psychic Michael de Nostradam published a number of his prophecies which mainly predicted future disasters, such as earthquakes, fires, and floods. Interestingly, despite the fact that many of these prophecies are undated, many feel that Nostradamus has rightfully predicted many catastrophic events in his own time, including 9/11. Spooky. Alright, fast forward to the late 19th century. Psychics were commonly associated with New Age culture. Psychic readings and advertising for psychics became very common, and by the end of the 60s, physicians were getting readings over the phone. So it goes without saying that as long as there have been psychics, there have been believers. According to an infographic done by LiveScience.com, 71% of Americans have reported having a paranormal experience. Now, many of you may be asking if psychics have not been backed up by science in the history of ever, then how can so many people get behind it? Well, as it turns out, there's a very specific type of person who can get behind paranormal phenomena. And, well, it isn't a very flattering profile. A 2015 study looked into the relationship between the belief of paranormal psychic phenomena and their believers. When the people in the fancy lab coats compared the believers to the skeptics, they found that believers think less analytically despite having the same level of education. They also found that believers see the world from more of a subjective and personal perspective. In other words, they tend to see the world exclusively through their own eyes and have very little capacity for expressing or showing empathy. Now you may be wondering, what's with all the fuss about psychics? You know, to each their own, right? Some people are convinced that they're influencers and some think that they can see into the future, so what harm is any of it? It's been the case in the past that those who believe psychics and subscribe to their costly services get duped, robbed, or even frauded. Take the 2002 scandal of the psychic who goes by the name Miss Cleo. On late-night TV, she advertised free psychic readings via a toll-free number line, which robbed as much as $360 million from callers. Or the 2-year investigation of Maria Duval conducted by CNN, who duped 1.4 million Americans by promising that her so-called world-renowned psychic abilities would cure the sick or rescue missing people. Seduced by Duval's promises, people paid around $40 each time they corresponded with her in exchange for guidance. Seems harmless, right? Wrong. This seemingly simple scheme became one of the longest-running mail frauds in history. After infiltrating more than a dozen countries and over 20 years of scamming vulnerable communities, Duvall raked in more than $200 million in the United States and Canada alone. Now, it isn't just deceitful psychics that are the common thread amongst these cases, it's vulnerable people too. Many of the people who reach out to psychics are often very desperate and feel as though they have to resort to the paranormal world since the physical one just isn't cutting them any slack. This is particularly true for mediums or people who claim to be able to speak to the dead. Imagine those who have lost someone very suddenly or who want to have one last conversation with someone that's passed. Mediums entice these grief-stricken people by offering to be an avenue to facilitate the communication, but at a pretty penny, of course. Luckily for people like you, Brainerd, who was about to give up your credit card information, there are institutions that are looking out for those who may fall victim to psychic claims. Take the James Randi Educational Foundation, which offers a $1 million reward to any psychic, medium, or clairvoyant. You know, whatever you want to call them. It's a giant check to anyone who can demonstrate paranormal powers under controlled conditions. The JREF Challenge began in 1964 when the ex-magician turned debunker offered $1,000 of his own money to anyone who could prove a paranormal claim under controlled laboratory conditions. Unsurprisingly, nobody has cashed in on the reward, but that may also have to do with the fact that James Randi is no longer accepting applications for the $1 million prize. Which brings us back to Madame Claire, who still has Brainerd on the phone. Oh, what's that? She's willing to do a free reading for you? Here's an idea. Why don't we let her work her magic, and in the meantime, we break down common tactics used by psychics through science. So, keep her on the phone, Brainerd. We'll come back to her in a second. According to the Skeptics Society page, a program designed to teach you how to pass as a psychic medium, a common tactic used by people like Hollywood mediums Tyler Henry is to talk quickly and slickly. Let us explain. Take Madame Claire. She is talking your ear off. There are lots of questions and statements flowing out of her. Although this may seem like she's projecting the messages from the beyond, what she's actually doing is saying a bunch of stuff to see what resonates with you. As soon as she catches a verbal or non-verbal cue from you that confirms her chatter, then she'll roll with that. So now she's running her mouth, but she's actually beginning to mention some relevant stuff, specifically about you, Brainerd. She knows the name of your mom, your birthday. Wait, did she just mention your gamer tag? Although it might be inviting to start believing in Madame Claire's clairvoyant abilities, she is most likely conducting a hot read. This is when a psychic gathers information about the subject before or during the reading. You just gave her your name, email, and phone number, Brainerd, which is more than enough information to pick you up on social media. Have you ever seen those YouTube clips of mediums reading a large crowd of people like a live audience? It might seem fascinating that he's able to pick up on specific details on audience members, but the truth is, he probably researched them before the event. Cold reading, on the other hand, is a slightly different approach. Under the same live audience context, a medium may start to acknowledge very basic and common observations. For example, when a young and starry-eyed medium asks if someone had a grandparent who passed in the audience, there are tons of hands that are bound to go up. Then all he has to do is continue talking in a very charismatic and sympathetic way, and bam, a full-fledged and believable prediction. This is how horoscopes work. You may feel like the statement in the morning paper is genuinely personalized to you, but if you take a closer look, it's extremely broad and could apply to just anyone. In fact, read any of the other horoscopes. You're bound to relate to a Gemini, even if you're such a Taurus, Brainerd. Another reason why psychics allegedly work is the very fact that these sessions are costing us a pretty penny. When a private reading can range anywhere from $250 to $900, a buyer may really want to believe that this process works simply because they had to sell their Xbox just to do so. There's a lot on the line, which primes our brains to be in more of a believing mood even before we chat with people like Madame Claire. And of course, there's the fact that our brains are constantly looking to make connections. Ever have a weird dream the night before, and when you wake up, you try to make sense of the image of you riding a flying buffalo? Our brains naturally want to make connections in order to make sense of things, whether it's an odd dream or psychic predictions. Additionally, this also allows us to remember the hits and forget the misses. In other words, even as a psychic makes a far-fetched prediction about you, you're still more likely to remember and make sense of the claims relevant to you than those that are completely missing the mark. All of these tactics packaged into an intimate experience scattered with props such as tarot cards and a crystal ball are sure to get even you, Brainerd, a true skeptic, to take a double take. Now let's see how Brainerd is doing, shall we? Good, you're opting out of giving Madame Claire any personal and incriminating information. Smart. I guess you'll have to move on to somebody more gullible and, well, bored. You dodged this bullet. Great job. Wait, was that your mom's phone? Run, don't walk. Keep her credit card out of sight. Catch you next time, Brainerd.